Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has reaffirmed his support for Indian farmers' right to hold protests. Speaking in Ottawa, he said Canada will always stand up for human rights anywhere around the world. This comes despite New Delhi's warning that Trudeau's support to farmers could damage bilateral ties. Tens of thousands have been camping on the outskirts of New Delhi to protest new agricultural laws since last week. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has urged the Taliban to show their political will for peace and hold ceasefire. He was speaking at the first meeting of the High Council for National Reconciliation. Referring to the release of Taliban prisoners, Ghani said tough decisions had been made for peace and more tough decisions would be made. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered withdrawal of nearly all U.S. troops from Somalia by January 15th. The Defense Department says the move is a part of global pullout of U.S. forces before Trump's exit. Around 700 U.S. troops are stationed in Somalia to assist local forces to battle al-Shabaab and ISIS militants. The U.S. has registered record 225,000 COVID-19 cases overnight, with infections tally crossing 14.3 million. India's infections have topped 9.6 million, with over 36,000 new cases and 512 deaths in a day. Pakistan has reported over 3,100 cases and 44 new fatalities overnight, taking the death toll to over 8,300. Globally, the virus has claimed 1.5 million lives while infecting more than 65.8 million people. And in football, Hertha Berlin came from one goal behind to beat Union Berlin 3-1 in Bundesliga clash at the Olympia Stadium. Taiwo Wanier opened the scoring for Union Berlin in the 20th minute, but Peter Pekarik equalized in the second half and Christoph Piatek then scored a brace to seal 3 points for the hosts. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has reaffirmed his support for Indian farmers' right to hold protests. Speaking in Ottawa, he said Canada will always stand up for human rights anywhere around the world. Tens of thousands have been camping on the outskirts of New Delhi to protest new agricultural laws since last week. They feared the new reforms could have left them at the mercy of big corporates as they allowed the government to stop buying grain at fixed prices. Trudeau had released a video expressing concerns over a brutal police crackdown on the protesters. In response, India summoned Canada's ambassador to convey its displeasure and warned Trudeau's remarks could damage bilateral ties. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has urged the Taliban to show their political will for peace and hold ceasefire. He was speaking at the first meeting of the High Council for National Reconciliation. More in the following report.
Afghan political leaders, including Chief Executive Abdullah and former President Hamid Karzai, have attended the meeting of the presidential palace. State media said delegates stressed the need for unity and consensus among political leaders to move the Afghan peace efforts forward. Addressing the meeting, President Ashraf Ghani said that with the success of the first phase, peace negotiations have reached the second phase. Referring to the release of Taliban prisoners, Ghani said tough decisions had been made for peace and more tough decisions would be made. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Abdullah said Council represents all segments of society and the diversity of Afghanistan. He said Council will decide about the future of Kabul after consultation and fully accommodating the rightful demands of Afghans. He said war destroys the country, but peace will guarantee a future for everyone.
Iran has criticized International Atomic Energy Agency for revealing contents of confidential report on Tehran's plan to install new centrifuges. In a tweet, Iran's envoy in Vienna said the international watchdog is responsible for protecting countries' confidential safeguards information. Kazem Gharibabadi said the report appeared in media even before the IAEA's boards of governor members could track it down. He said the watchdog should revise its confidentiality mechanisms, including using GovAtom as the safe means for communications. Meanwhile, Russia has also criticized the leaking of the report. Iran's 2015 nuclear deal allows Tehran to only use first-generation IR-1 centrifuges. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud says a resolution to a dispute with Qatar is within reach. This comes after Kuwait's recent progress towards ending a row among the Gulf states.
Addressing the Rome conference, Prince Faisal said they have made significant progress in the last few days. He said due to the efforts of Kuwait and the United States, there is a hope that this headway can lead to a final agreement. Prince Faisal also reiterated support to the Palestinian state. He said Saudi Arabia will only normalize ties with Israel if a sovereign Palestinian state within the 1967 border lines is guaranteed. This has quashed speculations that the kingdom may soon become the latest Arab country to establish full diplomatic relations with Israel. The so-called Abraham Accords was signed in September to normalize ties between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Palestinian officials condemned the normalization as a stab in the back of the Palestinian cause.
Jordanian Foreign Minister has pressed for independent Palestinian state in a rare meeting with his Israeli counterpart. Jordanian media says Ayman Safadi urged Israel's Gabi Ashkenazi to restart the halted negotiations with Palestinians. Safadi stressed the importance of dialogue in order to find a real solution and achieve peace. Meanwhile, in a statement, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz called on Palestinians to return to the negotiating table. This came days after President Mahmoud Abbas visited Jordan as part of an Arab tour to raise support for the Palestinian cause. Bahrain will not allow the import of Israeli goods produced in settlements in occupied Palestinian territory. Bahrain state media said Commerce Minister Zaid bin Rashid Al Zayani's comments on imports from Israel have been misinterpreted. It said Commerce Ministry is committed to Bahrain's unwavering stance on its adherence to UN resolutions on Israel-Palestine conflict. Meanwhile, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said his Bahraini counterpart Abdul Latif al-Zayani also denied the Commerce Minister's comments. He said Manama reiterated that alleged comments totally contradict Bahrain's position of Palestinian cause. Earlier, Zaid said Manama will make no distinction between goods produced in Israel or in the occupied West Bank and Golan Heights. The United Nations has condemned the killing of a 15-year-old teen by Israeli troops in occupied West Bank. In a tweet, UN Special Envoy Nikolai Maladonov said children must be protected from violence. He told Israel to conduct an independent investigation into the incident. The child was protesting along with hundreds of Palestinians against Israeli settlements when occupying troops shot him dead. Palestinians described the killing as cold-blooded murder. Voting is underway in Kuwait's parliamentary elections. The elections come as the Gulf state faces its worst economic crisis in decades, occupied with the pandemic's devastation. More than 300 candidates, including 29 women, are contesting for the country's 50-seat legislative assembly. After the elections, while the emir of the state will pick the prime minister, who is responsible for naming the country's cabinet. Kuwait's nearly $140 billion economy is facing a deficit of $46 billion. U.S. President Donald Trump has ordered withdrawal of nearly all U.S. troops from Somalia by January 15. The Defense Department says the move is a part of global pullout of U.S. forces before Trump's exit. In a statement, Pentagon said some troops would move to neighboring countries, allowing for cross-border operations. It said the move did not reflect a change in the U.S. policy as it remains committed to African partners. Around 700 U.S. troops are stationed in Somalia to assist local forces to battle al-Shabaab and ISIS militants. The U.S. president had already ordered a cut down in troop level in Afghanistan from 4,500 to 2,500. Ethiopia claims to have killed or captured most commanders of rebellious Northern Tigray People's Liberation Front. Ethiopian military says the individuals who executed rebellion are still on the run and hiding. It said the captured or killed personnel also include former federal colonels and generals who fought on the Tigrayan side. But TPLF's local leaders said civilians in Tigray have been protesting against looting by the federal soldiers. Meanwhile, UN's Humanitarian Coordination Office said the fighting is still ongoing in many parts of Tigray. It said the continuing hostilities have complicated efforts to deliver humanitarian aid in the region. Hundreds of people have been killed in fighting between Ethiopian army and Tigray forces since November 4th. Joe Biden has officially secured enough electors to take charge as the U.S. president. The battleground state of California certified Biden's win, appointing 55 electors pledged for the Democrat. With California's certification, the president-elect's tally of pledged electors reaches 279. Results of Electoral College vote are due to be received and approved by Congress on January 6th. Meanwhile, President Trump's campaign has filed a lawsuit in Georgia seeking to invalidate election results. In a statement, Trump campaign said the lawsuit will include sworn statements from Georgians alleging fraud. Georgia's Secretary of State and other officials have repeatedly ruled out evidence of widespread fraud in November 3rd election. The U.S. has registered record 225,000 COVID-19 cases overnight, with infections tally crossing 14.3 million. India's infections have topped 9.6 million, with over 36,000 new cases and 512 deaths in a day. Globally, the virus has claimed 1.5 million lives while infecting more than 65.8 million people. More on coronavirus in the following report.
Nations all across the globe are still striving their best to bend the COVID-19 curve after almost a year, but the measures implied so far simply haven't proven effective. With the coronavirus vaccine deployments, the world is starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. U.S. state health departments are preparing hospitals for first shipment of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden says vaccination in the U.S. will not be made mandatory. However, Biden also said he may propose hundreds of billions of dollars in coronavirus relief next month.
Congress and President Trump have to get this deal done for the American people. But any package passed in the lame duck session is not going to be enough overall. It's critical, but it's just a start. Congress are going to need to act again in January.
Over in Latin America, public health experts in Brazil warn that an accelerated transmission rate among young people is a major contributor to a surge in cases. Meanwhile, around 1,500 health workers in Chile are taking part in phase 3 clinical trials of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Mexico is seeing the beginning of end of the pandemic, with the first doses of Pfizer's vaccine expected to be delivered in the next few weeks. With government's orders to cancel year-end travel plans and avoid exchanging Christmas presents, the citizens question how they will be able to feed their families in such situation.
People are not taking the measures to prevent coronavirus, and I think that the government has also not been severe in terms of compliance with the measures. I don't know what the government could do in those cases, but I believe both Mexicans and the government are responsible for the second wave of COVID-19.
In the meantime, spike in COVID-19 cases in South Korea has prompted Seoul's administration to announce unprecedented curfews starting from today.
In Pakistan, 43 more people have lost the battle against COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, which raises the death toll to over 8,300. The health ministry says more than 3,100 people tested positive for the disease overnight. The ministry said the country's COVID-19 active cases have crossed 52,000. It added out of nearly 413,000 countrywide cases, more than 352,000 have recovered so far. The ministry says Sindh province has the highest rate of cases while crossing 180,000. Punjab has reported over 122,000 coronavirus cases. In the capital city Islamabad, nearly 32,000 people have been infected so far. Pakistan is observing the 49th martyrdom anniversary of Major Muhammad Akram. He embraced martyrdom during the Pakistan-India War in Hilli district of East Pakistan in 1971.
Born in 1938 in a small village of Gujarat's district Dinga city, Akram got his early education from Chakri Middle School. Later, he joined the military college Jhelum and got commissioned in the 4th Frontier Force Regiment of Pakistan's Army on the 13th of October 1963. Akram maintained a good service record and was promoted as major in September 1970. During the 1971 war, he was commanding the 4th Frontier Force Regiment in Hilli district. He repulsed every attack, inflicting heavy casualties on the enemy. During the battle, he received a burst of fire in the chest and embraced martyrdom on the 5th of December 1971. Due to his supreme sacrifice, the government of Pakistan awarded him the highest military gallantry award of Nishan-e-Haider. To pay homage to the brave son of soil, wreath-laying ceremony was held at the monument of the martyred in Jhelum. Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa pays tribute to Major Muhammad Akram for his supreme sacrifice. A floral wreath was laid on behalf of General Bajwa at the monument.
China has asked the U.S. to stop politicizing educational exchange programs. Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian was responding to Washington's termination of 5 cultural exchange programs with Beijing. Zhao Lijian urged Washington to promote mutual trust and cooperation between the two countries. He criticized U.S. State Department's accusation of calling the programs soft power propaganda tools. Earlier, the U.S. imposed visa sanctions on the officials of Chinese Communist Party and its United Front Work Department. In a statement, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo blamed the Communist Party for spreading propaganda. Tensions between Beijing and Washington have soared this year over trade, COVID-19 and Hong Kong. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and moving on to India, where heavy rains from cyclone Burevi have caused severe waterlogging in coastal cities. The cyclone has weakened into a depression over the Gulf of Mannar with associated wind speed of 50 kilometers per hour. Rainwater caused drains to overflow, causing water to enter homes in Puducherry and southern Ramaswamy cities. Roads and streets were inundated and power supply remained disrupted in several places. People in low-lying areas were being shifted to relief centers and the cyclone shelters. Kerala Disaster Management Authority has issued an orange alert for its 4 districts for tomorrow. Archaeologists in Thailand have unearthed a rare, partially fossilized whale skeleton. The prehistoric skeleton is believed to be about 5,000 years old. More in the following report.
The excavation for the discovery of an ancient whale skeleton had been going on for about a month in Bangkok. Earlier in November, the 12.5-meter-long skeleton was discovered by a cyclist who spotted part of a large vertebrae coming out of the ground in an area 12 kilometers away from the sea. Researchers believe the skeleton is the only discovery of its kind in the continent.
This whale skeleton is currently thought to be the only one in Asia. It's very rare for us to find such a discovery in near perfect condition. Yesterday we found the right shoulder and fin, which added to what we already have. So we have managed to recover about 90% of the whale.
The team is piecing together the skull and filling up cracks at the site before it is transported to the laboratory for cleaning and preservation. Once this is finished, the fragile skeleton will be exhibited. The bones had to be carbon dated in order to determine the exact age of the skeleton. However, the gender of the whale is not yet known.
We found about 36 backbone pieces which stretched from the tail section to the neck. The tail end was quite damaged before the discovery. We also found the left shoulder and its fin, including 25 ribcage pieces and the skull.
Scientists are hoping the skeleton will provide more information to aid research into Bride's whales as well as the geological conditions at the time.
Renowned German pianist Igor Levit has staged a musical protest against the chopping of trees in Dannenreuder forest. The pianist took his instrument to the woods and performed a song in support of environmental activists. More in the following report.
Voicing support for the environment and against deforestation, famous pianist Igor Levit recorded his protest against the extension of the A49 highway. The new project is said to cut through Dannenreuder forest in Germany. The acclaimed singer sits down at his piano set up in the middle of the woods and plays the Irish song Danny Boy.
Auch wenn der Anlass sehr traurig ist und ich habe gerade
Even though the occasion is very sad, and just now during the rehearsal I had the feeling of playing some sort of swan song for something that leaves us, I am still thankful, happy and content to be here with you.
Dozens of police officers have been deployed to the Dannenreuder forest to protect the workers and to remove the activists who have built tree houses and erected barricades in the area to try to prevent the felling. Dannenreuder forest is also referred to as Danny. Levit also portrayed a poster on the back of his piano reading Danny Stays in German.
What is happening here is quickly reduced to a conflict between activists and the police. But ultimately, this is an attempt to defend and protect ecosystems and our livelihood so that we can survive. It has something almost deeply political to it.
Green activists in Frankfurt have lately been concerned about the felling of trees in the forest that began on the 1st of October.
The UK and European Union will seek to break the stalemate over a post-Brexit trade deal today. This comes after talks to reach a deal paused as UK and EU negotiators say significant divergences remain. Prime Minister Boris Johnson and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are meeting to break this deadlock. Negotiators Michel Barnier and David Frost said conditions for a deal between the two sides have not been met. State aid subsidies, fishing and enforcement of new rules remain the key sticking points in negotiations. If a deal is not agreed by the 31st of December, the two sides will follow the World Trade Organization rules. Earlier, Boris Johnson's spokesman said the government was committed to working hard to try and reach an agreement. In football, Hertha Berlin came from 1 goal behind to beat Union Berlin 3-1 in a Bundesliga clash at the Olympia Stadium. With this win, Hertha have jumped to 11th spot in the Bundesliga table, while Union Berlin are 6th. Taivo Vonnegut opened the scoring for Union Berlin in the 20th minute, but Peter Pekarik equalized in the second half and Christoph Piatek then scored a brace to seal 3 points for the hosts. Leaders Bayern Munich will host second-placed RB Leipzig today. Napoli have renamed their stadium after late club legend Diego Maradona. Former Argentina attacking midfielder and manager Maradona led the Italian side to Serie A titles in 1987 and 1990. Maradona died at the age of 60 on 25th of November. The Stadio San Paolo will now be known as the Stadio Diego Armadona after the Napoli City Council approved the resolution. Napoli owner Aurelio De Laurentiis proposed renaming the stadium in an open letter after Maradona's death. Maradona spent 7 years at Napoli after joining from Barcelona in 1984. Maradona made 188 appearances for Napoli, more than he made for any other club in his career. Professional women footballers have been guaranteed maternity leaves under new rules approved by FIFA. Speaking to a news conference, FIFA President Gianni Infantino talked about new rules and regulations. Under the new rules, a player will be given 14 weeks maternity leave and her club will be obliged to provide her adequate medical support. The rules will be incorporated into FIFA's regulations on the status and transfer of players and will be enforced worldwide. Infantino said the main goal of new rules is to provide stability in the careers of female players.
And when it comes to female players, this means that we should bring also more stability to their careers, so that for example, if they need to take maternity leave, then they do not have to worry about their careers.
In motorsports Formula One race, Mercedes' George Russell completes a clean sweep 2 practice sessions at the Sakir Grand Prix. Russell is Lewis Hamilton's late stand-in after he tested positive for COVID-19. Russell beat Red Bull's Max Verstappen by a fraction of a second, while teammate Valtteri Bottas finished 11th. Bottas set the fastest lap of the session but had the time deleted for exceeding track limits. Racing Point Sergio Perez was there third ahead of Renault's Esteban Ocon. Hamilton is leading the driver standings 131 points ahead of teammate Bottas. And now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.